Oh, hello there. I'm Bilchan.
I'm Nimikung.
I'm Banchan.
In this class, I'll read to all of you Chapter 10, Section 6 of The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes.
As.
Ah.
The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes. Author Conan Doyle. Chapter 10, Section 6. For our quote. A picture of offended dignity. Forward N had held out her hand to him. Raised his eyes. It was as well for his resolution. Perhaps. Her pleading face was one which it was hard to resist. You are angry, said she. Well, pray make no apology to me, said Lord Street. Simon bitterly. Well, yes. And that I should have spoken to you before I went. Kind of rattled. Just didn't know what I was doing or saying. Perhaps. My Smulton, if I may give an opinion, remarked the strange. Gentlemen, I took too much secrecy over this business already. For my part, small, wiry, sunburnt man, clean-shaven manner. Then I'll tell our story right away, said the lady. I met in 84 in Macquarie's camp near the Rockies, was working a claim. We were engaged to each other, Frank and I. But then one day father struck our bucket and made a pile while poor Frank here had to claim that petered out and came to nothing. Richer Pugger the poor was Frank, of our engagement lasting any longer. And he took me away to Frisco. Frank wouldn't throw up his hand. Though, so he followed me there and he saw me. Upon knowing anything about it. Made him out to know so. We just fixed it all up for ourselves. Frank said that he would go. And make his pile too, never come back to claim me until. He had as much as Paul. Not to marry anyone else while he lived. Oi, then, said he, and then I will feel sure. I've you, and I will claim to be your husband until I come back. Well, talked it over, and he had fixed it all up so. Nicely, a clergyman already in waiting, that we just did it. Right there, and then Frank went off to seek his fortune. The next I heard of Frank was that he was in Montana, then he went prospecting in Arizona, Mexico, being attacked by Apache Indians, and there was my Frank's name among the cult. I fainted away, and I was very sick for months after. Pa thought I had a decline, and took me to the doctors in Frisco. Not a word of news. Came for a year and more. I never doubted that Frank was really dead. Then Lord Street to Frisco, and we came to London. And a marriage was arranged, and Paul was very pleased to. My poor Frank. Still, if I had married Lord Street, Simon, of course I'd have done my duty by him. We can't command our love, but we can our actions. To be, but you may imagine what I felt when came to the altar rails at me out of the first view. First, but when I looked again, there he was still, question in his eyes, or sorry to see. And I wonder I didn't drop. Everything was turning round buzz of a bee in my ear. I didn't know what to do. Should I stop the service and make a scene in the church? At him. Again, then he seemed to know what I was thinking. He raised his finger to his lips to tell me to be still. I saw him scribble on a piece of paper, was writing me a note. I dropped my bouquet over to him, pen when he returned me the flowers. The chin him when he made the sign to me to do so. Of course I never doubted for a moment that my first duty was now to him, and I determined to do just whatever he might direct. I told my maid, who had known him in California, been his friend. I ordered her to say nothing few things back to my house already, to Lord Street. Simon, all those great people, explain afterwards, out of the window at the other side of the road. Me and him began walking into the park. I slipped out my things and followed him. Walked straight away from her and soon overtook Frank. We got into a cab together and away we drove to some lodgings he had taken in Gordon Square. That was my true wedding after all those years of waiting. A prisoner among the Apaches had escaped came on to Frisco that I had given him up for dead and had gone to England. Me there I saw in a paper explained the American had a talk as to what we should do, open a slant to Paul. Perhaps to show him that I was alive. Breakfast table and waiting for me to come back. Things and made a bundle of them so that I should not be traced, and dropped them away somewhere where no one could find them. Likely that we should have gone on to Paris. Tomorrow, gentlemen, Mr. Holmes came round to us. This evening he found us as more than I can think clearly and kindly that I was wrong and that Frank was right. We should be putting ourselves in the wrong if we were so secret. He offered to give us a chance of talking to Lord Street Simon alone, and so we came right away round to his rooms at once. Then, Robert, you have heard it all. I have given you pain, Lord Street, his rigid attitude to this long narrative. Excuse me, he said. Then you won't forgive me? Oh, certainly, Hennand coolly grasped that which she extended to him. I had hoped, suggested Holmes. I think that there you ask a little too much, responded his lordship. May be forced to acquiesce in these recent developments, be expected to make merry over them. Bowen stalked out of the room. Honour me with your company, said Sherlock Holmes. Meet an American, Mr. Moulton remarked. Holmes, when our visitors had left us to be almost inexplicable, as narrated by this lady, and nothing stranger than the result when viewed for instance by Mr. were not ourselves at all. From the first, two facts were very obvious to me. The lady had been quite willing to undergo the wedding ceremony she had repented of. It, within a few minutes of returning home, had occurred during the morning. Then to cause her to change her mind. What could that something be? She was out, for she had been in the company of the bridegroom. Had she seen someone, and if she had mere sight of him would induce her to change her plans so completely. See, we have already arrived, by a process of exclusion, that she might have seen an American. Then who could this American be? And why should he possess so much influence over her lover? It might be a husband. Her young woman had, I knew, been spent in rough scenes and under strange conditions. Caught before I ever heard Lord Street Simon's narrative of a man in a pew, of the change in the bride's manner, of so transparent a device for obtaining an ode as the dropping of a bouquet, of her resort to her confidential May prior claim to a whole situation became absolutely clear. Mandate might have been difficult, hence the value of which he did not himself know. The initials were, of course, of the highest importance. Why the select prices? Most expensive hotels. There are not many in London which charge at that rate. In the second one which I visited, in Northumberland Avenue, an inspection of the book that Francis H. Moulton, an American gentleman, had left only the day before. On looking over the entries against him, I came upon the very items which I had seen in the duplicate bill. His letters were to be forwarded to 226 Gordon Square, Trafford, and being fortunate enough to find the living couple at home, both to the general public and Aloud Street. Simon in particular invited them to meet him here, and as you see, no very good result, I remarked. All. Watson, said Holmes, smiling. To be continued.